Welcome to the Well-Seasoned Librarian Podcast. I'm your host, Dean Jones. This is Season 14, Episode 10. We get to have our wonderful friend Barry Enderwick back. You remember him on the podcast before. He is affiliated with the social media wonder, which is Sandwiches of History, and also In the Chips with Barry. He's a really, really wonderful and just a machine putting out wonderful content on a daily basis for Sandwiches of History. And he puts out In the Chips with Barry, I believe, a couple of times a week too, which is also wonderful. It's always great to see him, I think, on social media. And just, he really makes my day. He's one of those people that he can make me laugh out loud. And he's just so fun. And his content is just so enjoyable. It's got me through some tough times. That's no exaggeration. When I found out that he had a new cookbook coming out, which really is a no-brainer, because I'm surprised nobody snapped him up and got a cookbook out of him earlier. But I just think it's really wonderful to have him on the show again. He's just such a fun guest and so easy to talk to. Ever since he can remember, Barry Enderwick has been obsessed with sandwiches. The endless combinations you can pile between two slices of bread. One day, a friend stumbled upon a digital copy of a treasure trove, the up-to-date sandwich book from 1909, and then Barry, love of all things sandwich-related, turned him into a social media phenomenon. These creations are wild, and they're so funny. Occasionally, he'll get a dud, like the yeast sandwich, which he will then put in the waste can in a very theatrical way, and it's very funny. It never ceases to make me laugh out loud. So the idea took off on wildfire on social media, and he's become very, very well known. He even sells merchandise, which is really wonderful. I highly recommend it. He now shares these classic sandwiches with his classic plus-ups and his own mouth-watering inventions every week. He does it, he puts out content daily, so you can go on and see him every single day, even holidays. So, and even when he's taken off, he's even had guest people on the show doing content for him too. His dedication to sandwich making has landed him on places like Gastro Obscura, Today.com, and The Guardian. If you want to see his latest delicious creations, find him at Sandwiches of History at Instagram. The new book is going to be out November 5th, but I wanted to talk about it early. You can go online and pre-purchase it now if you want to. We're going to have links to it in the bio. So without any further ado, I'm going to take you to my conversation with the wonderful and fun Barry Enderwick. Welcome to the Well-Seasoned Librarian Podcast. I'm your host, Dean Jones. Today we're speaking with Barry Enderwick, who's back again. He'd been on here before talking about his Sandwiches of History podcast on Instagram, and we're going to have him back to talk about his new cookbook, Sandwiches of History. Barry, welcome to the podcast again.
Thank you. Great to be back.
So just for our listeners who might be new to you, where in the world are you from and where do you live now?
My origin story. Well, let's see. I was pushed out into the world in Columbus, Ohio, lived there for about 6 years, lived in Virginia Beach, Virginia for about 6 years, then 21 years in and around San Diego, and for the last 23 here in San Jose.
Very nice. You're a local guy. I asked this question before when last time you were here, but I want to kind of go over it again with anybody who might be new to your content. Sure. Where did you get the idea to kind of get into exploring the history of sandwiches that you do? And just for the backstory, if anybody hasn't seen this on Instagram or TikTok, or not, you don't do it on TikTok anymore, just Instagram.
I do actually.
Okay, yeah. So either one of those. If you have seen it, like I watch it every day, and you put it out every single day, so you have fresh content continuously, and you're always doing new sandwiches and inventive new sandwiches. Sometimes they're fun, sometimes they're improbable. I've seen a few that were kind of scary. So how did you get into this? What sparked the interest for this?
Well, I'd already been reviewing potato chips over on In the Chips with Barry for a while, my other social media account. And a friend of mine sent me a PDF of the up-to-date sandwich book of 1909. And I was reading through it and I was just like, this is crazy. And he's like, yeah, it'd be kind of fun to do these. I'm like, yeah, it would be fun to do these. Well, he's not one to do social media at all, except for to just sort of lurk and post and like things. And I thought this would be fantastic to just try these sandwiches. What did someone in 1909 think was the bee's knees when it came to a sandwich? And is it tasty now? And eventually, like early on, I was just tasting them and evaluating them. Then after a while, there were some that were okay. They weren't bad, but if you just added an ingredient or two, they'd be probably pretty good. So that's the whole premise, is that I make sandwiches as written from old recipes and then plus them up for the modern palate if they have potential.
I had always hoped that you would do a cookbook based on the series, and I was happy that when I heard that you were going to do one, I was so happy. What kind of initially, where did the spark come from to do it? Did you always think you would do it, or just one day did you get the idea? Hey, I think
Oh,
I'll actually do this.
yeah, no, I didn't think any of this would be happening. I didn't think that Instagram would blow up to over 300,000 followers, or TikTok. I didn't think that. I'm also posting, by the way, on Reddit, YouTube, and Facebook every day as well.
Oh wow,
I'm actually very surprised at all of it, because I just thought it'd be a kind of fun thing to do. Maybe some people would like it. I didn't think it would get this big of a following, and I certainly didn't plan on doing a cookbook. Excuse me. I certainly didn't plan on doing a cookbook, but after a while, there was just so many different interesting recipes out there that if you could modify them and tweak them a little bit here, a little bit there, they'd be fun for people to try, and there would be something new and different for them to try from, as opposed to the standards that everyone knows, like the Reuben, which is not going to be in the book because you get a Reuben recipe just about everywhere,
yeah,
but you can't get a sophisticated club recipe everywhere. So.
yeah. Now, your book features both classic and surprising sandwich recipes. Can you give us some examples of categories you have in your book?
Yeah, I've got well, actually, I have vegetarian sandwiches, club sandwiches, tea and snack sandwiches, open face and sauce sandwiches, sweet sandwiches, and surprising sandwiches.
Very nice. Do you have any favorites of some of the different categories?
Well, let's see. The I will say the sophisticated club is a favorite just because it's so odd, but it works. It has peanut butter, it has coconut, it has pineapple, it has bacon. It's just it's kind of wild. I kind of love that about that. Other ones, all the international sandwiches are just unbelievable to me. They're so good and so delicious. There's the Kentucky Hot Brown, which is quite good.
That's
The,
a favorite. I love
yeah,
that one.
right, but it's heavy. It's not your a light sandwich.
Yeah.
The waffle cheese, which is pretty good. I'm partial to one that there's one original recipe in the entire cookbook, and that's the dusty nutter goose sandwich. Um, and it's a silly sandwich, to be sure, because I created it to help my friend James and Ben and their launch of their tabletop role playing game, Land of Eam. And so I called it the Dusty Nutter Goose, and I wanted to be sort of fanciful and something someone who is younger than myself would maybe find appealing. But if you think about the flavors, it actually really kind of works. So it's basically Eggo waffle, peanut butter, smoked duck breast, and cherry pop rocks. And so
Ooh, that sounds good.
if you take out the goofiness of Eggo waffles and you take out the goofiness of the Pop Rocks, if you look at the flavors of cherry, peanuts, smoked duck breast, it is actually it is a fun and tasty sandwich to make.
I like that. That sounds really good, actually. I could see that coming together very nicely. Huh, I like that. So, you recreated dozens of historical recipes in the book from different sandwich cookbooks. What was the biggest challenge you faced in staying true to the original recipes?
Well, the thing is, most of these recipes make anywhere from like 5 to 20 sandwiches. So
Yeah,
that was one of the big things, was to make sure that this got scaled down. And I wanted recipes that made a single sandwich, because it's easy to double it. It's easy to quadruple it if you need to. It's easy to scale up sandwiches, but like getting 1/12 of something is not quite as easy. So that's part of the
yeah.
process for writing these recipes, was to test out like what amounts should you use when you've scaled the recipe down. The other thing is, you got to kind of do a little research. A lot of recipes will say like, mixed together with a cream cheese, blah 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 blah. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't buy a cream cheese. It turns out that that unit of measure is 3 ounces. But just figuring that stuff out, and then it's like, okay, well, that's 3 ounces, and that's for 4 sandwiches, right? And so it's just a matter of working that through, and modifying and adapting things so that it becomes a easy to make sandwich for someone now.
What was the most interesting historical tidbit or fun fact you uncovered while you're doing the research for the cookbook?
For me, it's the ketchup was originated as fish sauce. Basically, it started off over in China, and somehow the through the world trade and English sailors brought it back to England, and there it started to morph. And there was things like mushroom ketchup, walnut ketchup, all these different styles of ketchup, and then tomato ketchup caught on, and it's what we know today. But its origins are actually fish sauce.
Hmm. Yeah, I always remember, like, I always wondered why they said tomato ketchup, and then when I got older, I started seeing walnut ketchup and mushroom ketchup. I'm like, oh, I see now,
Yeah,
because we
yeah.
always
There's
think of it
different.
as a monolith.
Yeah, and there's grape ketchup. There's a. I actually want to do a sandwiches of history episode on nothing but making ketchups.
That would be kind of fun. I think it'd be kind of nice to make your own, because I've always thought like it'd be interesting to try cranberry ketchup around the Thanksgiving time or
Oh
something
yeah,
like that.
yeah, definitely.
Now, you're very well known in your on your episodes for your plus ups.
Yeah,
And it's always turns out makes things turn out much better. And so when you take something, sometimes the recipe is really big for a plus up. Like some of the tea sandwiches can be kind of bland. Usually, like having one recipe like that'll have maybe one item plus butter on bread. So you
right,
kind of have to. It begs for a plus up.
right.
Can you share some tips for making a classic sandwich and taking it to the next level?
Yeah, what I try to look at is contrasting or complementing flavors. Is there something that's going to play off of something? Is there something that's going to kind of harmonize with the main ingredient? I also look for textures. Is something going to bring like a crunch to the sandwich that will actually make it not such a mushy mess? Um, I also try to think in terms of international cuisine. What other cultures use, like think of like a Venn diagram of ingredients. Where's the overlap? And can we take something from, say, Thai cuisine and apply it to this peanut butter sandwich because they use peanut butter in a satay sauce? So just things like that to just try and come up with different interesting ways to make the sandwich fun and tasty.
What's okay? This is going to be a hard one to answer, but I just want to kind of throw it out there. Maybe we'll say a couple examples.
Okay.
What's the worst few sandwiches you've ever made, do you think, that you've kind of immediately kind of tossed into the can after taking a bite of it?
I got to say the yeast sandwich comes to mind immediately.
Yeah, that was pretty
That was
awful.
that was a compressed yeast cake mixed with table sauce, and some folks say table sauce is ketchup, some say it was Worcestershire sauce, but both were bad. And what's interesting is I did a little research on why would anyone even make a recipe for yeast sandwich, and it turns out in the 1920s, Fleshman Brothers wanted to sell more yeast. And so they got together with a marketing company and they came up with a campaign of eat fresh yeast, and people bought it hook, line, and sinker and increased sales. And then eventually kind of figured out that maybe that wasn't the best thing for their gastrointestinal tract. And the fad went away. But, here we have a recipe from a sandwich book or from a recipe book to have you eat yeast. So that was not a good one. There was another one called the Goblin sandwich. It had like Worcestershire sauce, avocado, and it used a donut. And granted,
Uh,
the donut is not supposed to be super sweet, but it was still not an enjoyable experience. There's the oyster sandwich from 1909, which is just basically chopped up raw oysters, Worcestershire sauce, and olive oil and lettuce in between buttered bread. And I like raw oysters, but that was not the way to have them. So,
yeah. Ugh.
yeah.
I was all worried about you when you ate the yeast one, but I remember too that it was, done ahead of time. It wasn't live, so you would be fine. So I had to
Yeah,
kind of.
exactly. If I stopped posting, you might have you might have been right there, but no.
The sandwich was included in your obit.
Exactly. How'd you die? Sandwich. Makes sense.
What do you hope that readers will take away from the book besides some delicious new sandwich ideas?
My hope is that they take a look at or get inspired by the idea of plussing up the sandwiches. Maybe not necessarily my plus ups, but just the approach of what can I do to make this a little bit better? What can I do to add a little something to this that makes it really something I want, as opposed to just eating something and going, it's not that good. Like, because there's so often, you just eat something and you're not thrilled with it, but you eat it anyway. Whereas if you could just add like one or two ingredients, it might be really good. So my hope is that they have like a sense of curiosity, a sense of adventure when it comes to how they um, deal with their food, how they think about food and ingredients.
Is there any? Do you have a special like dream sandwich with any combination of ingredients that you included in the book, or that you have that in your that you make at home?
Yeah, well, I there's one sandwich that I've made several times from the show that's not really that old of a sandwich. It's from the Turkey and the Wolf. Was it? It's from Flavor Trip in New Orleans by Turkey and the Wolf, which is a restaurant in New Orleans, and it's called the Tomato, and it is fantastic. It's a sandwich of recent history, but obviously that's not going to be in the book because it's in his cookbook.
Yeah.
But it is it's one of those things where you put it together and you're like, okay, this could taste pretty good. And then you taste it, and it's like, how is this so good? How is this possible for it to be so good? And I made it twice. In addition, I made it twice on Sandwiches of History, and I made it twice not on Sandwiches of History.
Do you have any favorite? I don't want to plug anybody, but do you have any favorite chains like Jimmy John's or something like that that you like to go to when
You
when
know,
you?
this is a good question, but not really. I don't eat a lot of sandwiches outside of Sandwiches of History, as you might imagine, just because I eat a lot of sandwiches every day.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a chain that I go to or anything like that to eat sandwiches outside of Sandwiches of History. I do. There is a place in Half Moon Bay called Dad's Luncheonette that has this fantastic maitake mushroom sandwich that we'll go over and get every once in a while.
Ooh,
But and he also has a hamburger sandwich, but I like the mushroom one better.
nice. So
Yeah,
check that out. I love Half Moon Bay.
yeah.
I want to also ask you. I know that you had been rating breakfast burritos for a bit. Do you have any recommended breakfast burrito places for those of us who live locally and can hit them up?
Well, that's tough. So far, I've only been to the places that are really close to my house, and one other place in Aptos, which is associated with a golf course. And unfortunately, that place did have the best breakfast burrito I've had. But there's a place called Delicia. Let's see, I need to look up the actual name here in San Jose that I enjoy. Um, let's see. Delicia Original on Lincoln. It's basically a food truck that's just always in the same spot, and it's quite tasty. Greenlee's, which is a bakery, has a good one, which is
Oh,
shocking
nice. Huh.
because they're known for their cinnamon bread. They're not exactly a Mexican food joint, but theirs is pretty good. But I have to say though, I have not ventured far afield to test a lot of burritos, so this is just a very, very, very small sample size.
You also review chips for your chip review
Mhm.
portion of the program, and part of it is you'll do, I think, three different chips, and then you'll say, "Does it sandwich?" Do you want to explain that to our listeners a bit that might not have watched that program?
Yeah, that one I've been doing longer than Sandwiches of History, and it used to be a lot more regular cadence. But now, one week I'll do a chip review on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then on Saturday I'll do a thing called Can It Sandwich, where I try to replicate the original one that I had, which was a potato, cheese, and onion crisp sandwich, which was basically potato, cheese, and onion crisps between buttered white bread, and it was delicious. And I'd never had that before, and I thought I got to try this with these other chips, and so I'll try it with the chips that I review during the week. Then the next week is I'll have one review on Tuesday, but I won't do the whole thing because I've kind of cut back a little bit on that. But I do that. I push that on. I have that on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Chips will go through like there'll be a vogue for a certain type for a while. I remember that all dressed had its day a few years ago,
Mhm.
and salted egg came out last year. I
Yep.
wasn't as impressed with salted egg as I thought I would be. It ended up being a little bit too rich for me. Do you have
Yeah.
any favorites of stuff that have come out recently that you really liked?
Yeah. I have to agree with you on the salted egg. They're definitely rich. They were delicious, and I like the curry leaves in the bag and everything and the spice level.
Yeah,
But you could only eat so many of those before you were right, need to back off.
yeah.
I'm excited to try the new hers inspired by Philly, I believe it's called, line of stuff where they have pierogi and they have cheese ravioli flavored stuff. So I want to try those. I'm looking forward to that. Um, Kettle Brand had a 7-layer dip one that was actually shockingly good. Like they
Hmm.
nailed all the different flavors of a 7-layer dip. So that one was quite good that I had recently. But yeah, I don't know. Other than that, no real recent standouts.
I've had some that were heinous. I didn't care for the chicken and waffles ones that Lay's put out a
Yeah.
few years ago. Did you have any that you had that you thought, wow, this is uniformly bad?
Oh yeah, no, I've had some ones. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I definitely have had ones where like this. No, I'm not even going to finish this. Um, and a lot, sometimes it can be like because of a specific ingredient, like chips from Lay's of China. Sometimes they'll use aspartame to sweeten it, and that has a
Oh,
really strong aftertaste that I don't like. So it's like I don't care how good your flavor is, it gets ruined in like a minute after I'm done eating it. I don't want to eat it.
yeah, yeah. I'm the same way. I can't abide that
But
stuff.
like Pringles from Thailand, amazing flavors, just amazing flavors. Which Pringles here in the United States, they're not even consistent with the flavors they've got here, the narrow amount of flavors. And so that's kind of weird. Is that brand in a different country is just killing it, doing a great job.
I like that. Have you ever tried some of the British ones? I know that they have a wider range. It seems like I've loved the prawn cocktail and like roast beef dinner and chicken dinner
Oh yeah,
flavors.
yeah. No, I've definitely had quite a few crisps from the UK and Ireland, and yeah, there's so many good ones. There's so many good ones, and they definitely have the odd thing to me is how wide the palette is for flavors outside of the United States. Like, for example, ketchup flavored potato chips.
Yeah,
The first time I had those was from Canada years ago. And it's just like, it's mind boggling to me that that wouldn't be a flavor on shelves here in America, given how much
yeah,
ketchup is sold here and consumed here.
yeah. It is kind of Worcestershire sauce was one I saw and I
Mhm.
tried. I like that one too, and I
Yeah.
love the all dressed from Canada. Those are really
Yes.
great.
I love those as well. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm still down with those.
So your book is coming out in November. We're going to put links to people so people can purchase it and
Cool.
basically get online for that because they're going to want to. It's probably going to go fast. What's next for you though?
Right now I am planning on trying to figure out how to do a tour for Sandwiches of History, basically an event-based tour um, in support of the book after it launches. Basically, showing up, doing a little bit of an intro about who I am, because most people don't have any clue who I am. They just see me show up, make sandwiches, and disappear. And then do things like audience participation, where they have to vote on a plus up. They come up, make a sandwich for me. We'll do some trivia about sandwiches, just a whole bunch of different things. Maybe have some book signing and that kind of stuff. So, working on the details of that, working on trying to figure out how to make that happen in the December timeframe with all the things that are going on with the election, with the holidays. So yeah, it should be interesting.
I think I can recommend some places. I'll text you some ideas.
Okay.
I want to ask you too as one last question. You
Yeah.
sell some merchandise and some of it's very clever. Do you ever see people out and about with bumper stickers or T-shirts from your that reference your sandwiches of history?
No, I've never. I can honestly say I've had people come up to me and say, "Hey, are you the Sandwiches of History guy?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay, that happens once in a blue moon." But I've
Oh,
never seen anyone with my merch on for sure. No.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, it'll probably happen eventually, especially after the cookbook. Barry, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. It's been
Yeah.
wonderful talking to you.
Likewise, I had a lot of fun. Thank you.
And that's all the time we have on the Well Seasoned Librarian. I want to thank Barry Enderwick of Sandwiches of History for being on the podcast. A big thank you to all sandwich aficionados for being here and tuning in. You can find links to pre-purchase Barry's book in the show notes. We will be also having more guests this week. On Friday, we'll be having Kristen, who is the chicken librarian of the Chicken Librarian blog. Until then, we will see you at the library.